So, hello friends, welcome to my channel Himanshu Ojha. We are doing with the crash course for ethics answer writing, that is a small course for mains appearing student or those students who are just going for preparation but they are unable to clear mains. But this is the time when everyone should focus on preparing mains rather than getting into the endless loophole or the vicious cycle of getting into the prelims preparation. Why this course? This course is just because at most of the time the ethics taught in the class and the ethics which is needed for writing answers are totally different. In the classes you are mostly doing with the theory part or the attitude part or related to the governance part. But the main issue lies that are you able to write these or integrate these things into your answers. And if you have tried answer writing and you are a beginner, or if you have suffered in your mains examination due to ethics, this course is for you. Just because in this course I will be dealing with all the aspects of ethics which are needed to write good answers. These would be the classes would be so much so that you are just able to write good answers and fetch better marks. We have done with utilitarianism, and now today we will be dealing with ethical theories, deontology. So, friends, let's start the class for today. First of all, the question is what is deontology? Okay, what is deontology? Deontology is also known as duty ethics. What? Duty ethics. Okay, this deals with the basic premise of deontology is that the ethical evaluation of any act primarily deals with the set of duties. Okay, ethical evaluation depends on the set of duties because in ethics there are three or four schools. Basically, first is you can say deontology, second is utilitarianism, third is virtue ethics, and fourth one which we can say is the Indian ethical aspects. Okay, Indian ethical aspects. So we have done with deontology. Sorry, we are done with utilitarianism. In utilitarianism, what we see is that greater good for greater people. The ethical evaluation of any act is just based upon the outcome of the act rather than the act itself. But in deontology, it is it is seen that whether this act is permitted or not, permitted by the duty or not. Okay, so the word deontology comes from Greek word deon. Deon, it means duty. Okay, so it says that it is a duty based ethical theory developed primarily by Emanuel Kant. Remember this name because you need to quote him multiple times in your answer. Okay, Immanuel Kant. So, according to Kant, the moral worth of an action lies in doing one's duty, not in its consequences. Not in its consequences. So, the keyword here is duty over consequence. Duty over consequence. See, it has two aspects. One is positive and the other one is negative. First, let's see what is the negative aspect. Negative aspect is no place for emotion. Emotion has no place. in deontology. Okay. Secondly, it leads to exclusion at times. It leads to exclusion. And thirdly, first is no place for emotion. Second one is exclusion. And the third one is that if the duty is in itself wrong, okay, it can be justified via deontology. Okay. So sound eco issue. अरे थोड़ा सा रुक गई, स्ट्रीम रुकी नहीं है। आवाज आ रही है देखो। हेलो हेलो। यार मेरे में तो चल रहा है, थोड़ा सा लैग है। हेलो, आ रही है आवाज ठीक? ओके ओके। सॉरी फ्रेंड्स, थोड़ा सा हो जाता है ऐसा, फर्स्ट टाइम हम डूइंग लाइव, तो थोड़े से टेक्निकल ग्लिचेस हैं, तो ट्राई करेंगे रिजॉल्व हो जाए। हाँ, सो आई वाज वी वर टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट here the keyword is duty over consequences. Okay, duty over consequence, what does it mean? It means simply that, just a second, you have to perform your duty no matter what the consequence is. So I just told you that there is no place for emotion, there is exclusion, and if the duty itself is flawed, if duty itself is flawed, then it is also justified. Let me tell you a very important and very interesting thing. Deontology says that before making any rule or before making any duty, just make sure that proper deliberations are there so that the process in itself is process in itself is quite efficient. Okay, and now the second thing, that if there is no place for emotion, I'm just getting into the details, a bit of the details of deontology, because it is the base of the ethical aspects of the ethics. Okay, duty ethics, which is most important for doing your work as a civil servant or as a public servant. No place for emotion. Just imagine a scenario or imagine a case where an old lady is coming to you and she don't have proper documents and she's excluded. If she would had the documents, she would have been a beneficiary of a government scheme. So since you are just following your duty without any emotions, you will simply exclude her. Okay, that is the major flaw. No place for emotions, that means that you have to perform your duty. It is justified if your manager doesn't allow you a leave because there are huge targets to be met, and he is just denying you leave because you don't present a very good excuse for the leave. Okay, what are the positive aspects? Since there is no place for emotion, there is no place for fear as well. Fear, greed, etc. There is no place for fear, greed, etc. Okay, duty is the ultimate goal here. Okay, duty is ultimate goal. So friends, what we see here is that if you are into ethics, if you are interested in ethics, then, and if you have an ethical bent of thinking, then you will easily make good examples, easily look for good examples in the newspapers, so much so that you will be getting so much very good marks if you quote them. Okay, chalo, moving on. What is the core principle of deontology? Core principle of deontology. Here you just need to ask only one question. Is this my moral duty? Since why it is written moral duty? Because in duty ethics, in deontology, it is the moral of the person who is serving to perform his duty. Is it so? In a way, you just can omit moral and you just can think that is this my duty, rather than asking will this produce good results. For Kant, right action is equal to duty performed for the right reason. Okay, just note this thing, because whatever I have highlighted in bold, you can directly cut and paste that in your copy. Okay, so I would ask you that you please have your copy on and you just start writing these small lines. So the thing is, the core principle is that ask yourself, is this my moral duty or is this my duty, rather than asking will this duty yield in good results. Because if you ask this question, this is the core principle of utilitarianism. Utilitarianism. Okay, and is this my duty? This is the core principle of deontology. So right action, what is the right action? Right action for Kant is duty performed for the right reasons. Okay. 5 common principles of duty ethics which you need to write in your paper and you need to identify. I'll also give you a list of all those things, all those keywords which are utilized in the question paper, which are used in the question paper, where you need to quote deontology, and this is implicit. If you are just writing plain answers, it will not yield good result. Okay. So 5 common principle of duty ethics. The first principle is duty is supreme. Duty is supreme. That is, a person should perform his duty irrespective of reward or punishment. Reward or punishment. This is a very crucial line for having a stance in the case study. If you are solving any case study, this is the very crucial principle which you need to know, that irrespective of reward or punishment, you need to perform your duty. And that option needs to be justified via deontology or the duty ethics. So, what are the common examples here? The common example here is the most common is honest tax collection. Secondly, fair examination process. Fair examination process. And mark this since examination is a news, this can come in your examination. This can come in your examination. Okay. So what you need to see when duty is supreme type of question is there. You just need to see the keywords. Okay. Keywords in the question paper. The first keyword is duty itself. There's the part. Yeah. The first keyword is duty itself. Secondly, responsibility. Third, public service. And fourth is the constitutional obligation. So you need to see two things here. Either the question is asking these type of things in the paper, or you can write it, or quote it in your answer sheets while solving questions related to deontology. Okay. B, the second principle. Intentions matter more than consequences. Intentions matter more than consequences. What does this mean? A morally right action can still have unfavorable outcomes. A morally right action can still have unfavorable outcome. What does this mean? Let's take an example. A district magistrate refuses an illegal order despite political pressure. Suppose a minister or some minister or politician is pressurizing a DM to give the tender or order to a particular person, and he is denying that order. Usually these orders are oral and he is denying those. So what can he face? He can face transfer. Okay, he can face transfer. And why are people afraid of transfer? Usually because an IAS posted as a DM and an IAS posted as a secretary have huge difference in the power and the position they are enjoying in the society. A DM has a good bungalow, is known to all, is often seen in the newspaper and the news, and there are hundreds of people saluting him everywhere. But at the same time, when he is a secretary, he gets a humble type of accommodation along with 4 or 5 subordinates. That's the only thing. And there is a lot of frustration while in a attached posting. Attached postings are those postings which are given as a punishment. Okay, so he may face transfer, and this is the reason why people are afraid of transfer. So according to Kant, the action is still morally right because the intention was ethical. The intention was ethical to uphold the duty without corruption or fear of failure. Okay. Next is universalizability. See, this term is quoted in Kevin Gibson. Okay, Kevin Gibson. This is a very good book for reading ethics, and this book should always be a reference point while reading ethical theories. Okay, so universalizability. What is this? This is basically also known as categorical imperative. Categorical imperative. Use this word and know this word very properly. Okay, universalizability or the categorical imperative, because categorical imperative has often been asked implicitly in the paper. What does this mean, or what does categorical imperative mean? So there was a test given by Kant. Okay, the test was that act only according to that maxim which you will or you which you can will to become a universal law. सिर्फ ऐसा करो जो तुम यूनिवर्सल लॉ होते हुए देख सको. ठीक है. If we are coming in a more simpler language, act only as if it have been acted upon you. Okay, that is the only thing. Thirdly, then simply ask, what if everyone did this? Okay, he is saying regarding categorical imperative that simply ask, what if everyone did it? So suppose you have ditched someone or you have cheated someone. So simply ask that if you would have been cheated the same way, would you feel good? If not, then this is not a categorical imperative. There are some actions which you feel proud of. Standing against a bad person or a cruel person, standing against evil. So if you have stood against evil, then you will feel that, and if you try to imagine, you will understand that you will feel good if more people of the society are standing against bad practices or evil. Okay, that is the only thing. Then examples. Take some examples of categorical imperative. Taking bribe. Okay. Suppose if everyone accepted bribes, government would collapse. Therefore, bribery is morally wrong. Okay. Therefore, bribery is morally wrong. So, how can you use categorical imperative? Categorical imperative is for civil services is categorical imperative for basically public services is the values of public services. Values, honesty, integrity, transparency, accountability. These are the categorical imperative for public service. Okay? And this is related to the duty ethics or deontology. Moving on. Human dignity. Human dignity. It says never treat people merely as means. Always respect everyone's personal dignity. Okay? And using person and means as means. What does it mean? That whatever action you are doing should have an end result resulting to should have an end result resulting in the dignity of individuals rather than using them as a means to achieve something. Okay, so if we take an example, if there is a slum area, okay, take an example of slum area. So you are tasked with eviction or taking that land into the custody of the government. So that slum area needs to be evacuated from illegal occupation. So in order to remove that illegal occupation, you need to evict people. And while you are evicting people, you are just treating them as means to achieve your goals. Treating them as means to achieve your goals without rehabilitation. Okay. So what does deontology says? Deontology says that if you are evicting someone, you need to preserve their dignity. And while preserving their dignity, you need to have an approach which is rehabilitating them, which is preserving their dignity, as well as they are they are getting into a more better phase rather than they were while existing there. Okay. Second example of human dignity or the violation of human dignity is the custodial torture. See, IPC or nowadays BNS says that whatever has been told to the police is not admissible in the court of law. But we all know that during the police custody, most of the accused are beaten to the third degree so that they accept their fault. They are made to accept their fault just because the police can close their investigation. And in this way, they are using those accused as a means to achieve the end of getting the investigation done. Okay, so these are the examples which are against human dignity. So, what is the ultimate goal of deontology or duty ethics? Is duty ethics in public service should facilitate human dignity rather than degrading it. Facil- Facilitation of human dignity. Okay, see the last line. These violate duty ethics because people are used merely as instruments to achieve the goal. Okay, and lastly, the last principle of duty ethics is rules should be followed. Rules ensure, see here, point should not be there. Point should not be there. See why rules should be followed? Rules should be followed because rules ensure fairness, equality, justice, and predictability. Let's discuss one by one about all the four terms. First of all, you need to just have these four terms written in your copy because these are the terms related to duty ethics which can be directly quoted while answering. So at the end of the class, we will be discussing two answers along with some examples in them to understand that whatever we have studied, how we will translate them into our answers. Okay. So what is the utility of rules? Rules ensure fairness, equality, justice, and predictability. What is fairness? Fairness is that in a way it is close to equality. Justice seems Justice should not only be done but seem to be done. Okay. Fairness is also fairness is a very now fairness is a very broader set. Equality, justice, all are subsets of this fairness only. Okay. So fairness is a big set. Equality, justice, etc. All the words, all the virtues are the subset of fairness. Equality. See, we see equality of two kinds. One is substantive equality, and second is procedural equality. What is substantive equality? Substantive equality is usually equity. Okay? Equity can be said to be substantive equality. Just understand one example. Would you mind that if you are running with a person who is handicapped or has a damaged hamstring, would you mind if he starts, it's a 100-meter race and an injured person, would you mind if he starts his race at 40 because at 40 meter because you running 100 meter and he running 60 meter is almost the same. Okay, because if there are two different starting points, and those starting points are just on the basis of disability of the other, the starting points are changed because of the disability. That is equity, and equity is substantive equality. Okay. Second is procedural equality. What do you mean by procedural equality? Procedural equality is nothing but, see, simply that procedural equality is that suppose yourself and suppose an MLA, okay, if they have done a civil wrong or a criminal wrong, so, Don't take example of criminal wrong right now, because in criminal wrong there are few limitations. But if they have done a civil wrong, and when they are coming for the suit, okay, they'll be tried the same way as you are. That is the procedural equality. Okay. Justice. Justice should be connected with the preamble. Social, economic, and political justice. Okay. Rules ensure social, economic, and political justice, because the preamble says that, preamble envisions that the justice is of three kinds: social, economic, and political. But the social, economic, and political justice can't be achieved if there are no rules. Justice could only be achieved when there are a set of rules. Okay. So justice, predictability, justice, socio-economic, and political rules ensure justice, and justice of social, economic, and political. Whenever you are talking about justice, always related to preamble. Okay. Always with preamble, because if there are good interconnections and valid interconnections, okay, preamble is not just a piece of paper for polity or paper 2. Preamble has enshrined values which can be used in paper 4 as well. Okay. Paper 4. So, and the last one is predictability. See, it is the most important for modern states. Predictability of actions is the most important thing in the modern state theory. Why? See, nowadays the state is getting more powerful. Okay. How it is getting more powerful? More powerful regarding regulations, rules, and regulations, not with respect to rights. Understand one thing: states are powerful in two ways. First, when there is a discretion with the state, discretion available. When discretions are available, discretions are only available when the citizens are not knowing about their own rights. And when they go to enforce their rights, the discretion of the states gets lower day by day. But at the same time, due to, capitalism, it is the duty of the state to facilitate free trade, and that facilitation of free trade had made the government more powerful regarding rules and regulation. Although there are regulatory bodies, but we all know that those regulatory bodies are also related with the state only. Okay. Predictability. What is predictability? Suppose today a policy has been made that you come prepare semiconductor chips in our country, and we will be giving you incentives, production linked incentives. But after 2 years, when the company is coming to claim their incentive, the government is saying that, oh, sorry, we cannot give you incentive, we are not in a good fiscal condition. Or today you are governed by a set of rules, but those rules are applicable today. Suppose after 10 days, there is a rule that moving outside your house after 8 a.m. is a violation of a law. But as you are roaming outside your house today after 8 p.m., you are free person today, because there is no such rule that you can't roam outside your house after 8 p.m. But after 10 days, there is a rule that you can't roam outside your house after 8 p.m. And you are arrested that you violated a law, and you committed an offense. So in that way, there is no predictability. Rules ensure that there are predictability, and when there is predictability, see here, see, predictability, it is the most important factor for corporates, for investments, for common people, citizen, okay, For corporates, policy framework. For investment, there will be investment only if FDI or FPI investment will only be there if people are aware that for sure there will be some kind of if this is the policy today, this would remain for a certain period of time. Citizen, because they can't be arbitrarily treated due to absence of rules. So rules, see, understand fairness, subset of equality and justice, equality, substantive and procedural, justice, socio-economic and political, predictability, corporate, individuals, citizens, investment, everything is related to predictability only. And therefore, duty ethics naturally supports rule of law. Duty ethics naturally supports rule of law, constitutional morality, and administrative neutrality. Okay? So, if there is a question, suppose there is a question that deontology supports administrative neutrality or deontology in itself have constitutional morality enshrined. Discuss. So you need to discuss these 4 points: fairness, equality, justice, and predictability. Just because these 6 points, these 5 points in itself, if elaborated, will form a very good answer, and you need to present some good relevant examples regarding them. Okay, now let's come to deontology in public administration. See all these topics in the blue. Okay, in the blue upward, these are vital concepts which can be directly asked in your paper. Sometimes only deontology will help you write good answers, and at times not only deontology but deontology along with utilitarianism. If there is a comparative analysis, all those things would be required. So, how deontology is used in public administration? So, a civil servant should follow. A civil servant should, first of all, he should follow constitution. Secondly, he should follow laws. Constitution, laws. Be impartial. These are the qualities of a civil servant. In order, when he is following deontology, what would he show? Remain politically neutral, maintains integrity. What is integrity? It is the constant showcase or constant practice of ethical values. That is integrity. We all know that if the most common example, if you are picking up 500 rupee note when no one is watching you, don't have integrity. Okay, that is the main thing about main concept regarding integrity. Respecting citizen, avoiding corruption, and performing duty without fear or favor. These are the qualities of a public servant who is following deontology or duty ethics. So let's revise once again. A civil servant should follow constitution, follow laws, be impartial, remain politically neutral, maintain integrity, respect citizen, avoid corruption, and perform duty without fear or favor. Okay? Now let's come to deontology versus utilitarianism. We have already discussed about utilitarianism, and now let's discuss about deontology. What is deontology? Deontology is duty based ethics, and utilitarianism is consequence based ethics. What does it mean? The ethical evaluation the ethical evaluation of an act would be based on the outcome in utilitarianism, and was it your duty or was it a rule to perform a duty. That is the ethical pivot point of deontology. Secondly, in deontology, means are important. Okay, and in utilitarianism, ends are important. See, suppose if you look upon this line again. So Gandhi said that We don't believe in end result, we believe in the purity of means. What does purity of means mean? Purity of means mean that even if an act is done for a good purpose, but by breaking the laws, the act is not ethical according to Mr. Gandhi. Okay? In deontology, rules cannot normally be broken. Rules cannot be broken in deontology. Rules may be broken for greater good. Rules may be broken for greater good. Okay? In deontology, individual rights are protected. In deontology, individual rights are protected. Just think on this aspect that when it comes to right issues is a topic mentioned in the syllabus. Rights issue. Rights issue is there or right issues are there? That is a point in the syllabus. Whenever there is right issue, it will always be dealt with deontology. Okay? Let us assume a case that there is a court. So court has often quoted, most of the judges have often quoted that majoritarianism is not a parameter of truthfulness or justice, because majoritarianism is always against individual rights. Majoritarianism violate the rights of individuals, those who are from the minority. Okay? So whenever the right related issues of individual is coming in case study or in the section A, you should always think on the lines of duty ethics rather than utilitarianism. And when there is a conflict between, there are competing issues between deontology, there is conflict between deontology and utilitarianism. What you must follow? You must try to balance them out. You don't need to follow either of them, you need to balance both of them. Okay, harmonize both of them. Harmonization is a better term rather than balancing. Harmonize both of them. Okay. Deontology says do the right thing, whereas utilitarianism says do the most beneficial thing. Just read this chart, screenshot this chart. It would help you to gain 2-3 extra marks in your mains paper for sure. Deontology versus utilitarianism. This is the most important concept of ethics, which can be utilized in section A as well as properly utilized in section B. That is case study. Okay. Now the most important thing. UPSC keywords related to deontology. UPSC keywords related to deontology. What does it mean? Whenever you are seeing these words in your question paper, always think of Mr. Kant. It is not Kant. Many friends say him Kant, but he is Emanuel Kant. Okay? Whenever you see these words, duty, responsibility, integrity, probity, rule of law, constitutional morality, impartiality, accountability, honesty, public trust, professional ethics, or leadership. Just make a list of these words which are mentioned over here. Whenever you will see these words, always think of Kant, and when you will think of Mr. Kant, it would always think of duty ethics. Duty ethics. And whenever you are thinking about duty ethics, what you must think? Categorical imperative, means rather than ends. Okay? Means rather than ends. Third, human dignity, no place for emotions. And fifth, individual rights. Okay. So they were the keywords. Duty, responsibility. Either you can think about Mr. Kant while these words are coming in your question paper, or or what you can do, you can quote these words while answering questions related to deontology. Okay. Either you can just think about these words or think about Mr. Kant while answering questions related having these kind of words, or you can utilize these words in your answer related to deontology. Secondly, common UPSC questions where deontology fits. Those were the keywords. Now see the themes. Better than question, it is themes. Common UPSC themes where deontology fits. First, duty of civil servant, integrity in public service, probity in governance, rule of law, constitutional morality, public trust, accountability, ethical leadership, impartiality, non-partisanship, conscience versus rules, and whistleblowing. Okay, all these themes. Okay, all these themes are important because these themes would help you to identify that what concepts needs to be used here. Okay, these themes like public trust, accountability, ethical leadership, whistleblowing is the most important thing, and it is a theme which is always available in your case study. If it is not present in section A, whistleblowing will always come in section B. And whenever whistleblowing is coming, you must always choose the course of action which is justified only by the duty ethics rather than utilitarianism. What happens most of the time is that aspirants are running after utilitarianism or balancing between the extremes. But the main part is what the evaluator is thinking of is whether he has good knowledge about ethics or not. Because whenever whistleblowing is there, it must always be related with whistleblowing. Okay. Case study usually wants to know that what is the right thing to do when there are conflicting ideas. And therefore, when these kinds of questions are there, you must always think about deontology. Now, these are the quotes of Kant which are ready to use. The first quote is, act only according to that maxim, act only according to that maxim, whereby you can at the same time will that. Will is think or want. Will means want. Okay. Want that it should become a universal law. Act only according to that maxim whereby you can at the same time want that it should become a universal law. It is regarding categorical imperative and can easily be asked in code based questions. Code based questions. Okay. So for categorical imperative, there is a ready to use code. Act only according to that maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. The second quote is, duty is the necessity of acting out of respect for the moral law. Duty is the necessity of acting out of respect. Acting out of respect for the moral law. What is duty? It is acting out of respect for the moral law. It is not acting due to compulsion of following the duty, but it is acting out of respect for the moral law. Understood the difference? An action has moral worth only, remember here only, when performed from duty. An act is moral only when it is performed from duty. This is related to duty ethics. Okay. Suppose you are doing some action which is not within your duty. That is not a moral or ethical action as per the duty ethics. And the last one is treat humanity. Treat humanity, whether in yourself or another, always as an end and never merely as a mean. So, from these four codes, you can have a fair idea what deontology or duty ethics is all about. These four codes are the codes of Kant, who has postulated this duty ethics or deontology, and in these four codes you can have a fair idea, fair understanding what deontology all about. You have understood everything regarding categorical imperative and duty ethics. Now, and whenever you are writing an answer, you need to write a conclusion. So, what should be your conclusion reference point? See, the conclusion always depends upon the context. Conclusion always depends upon context of the question. So, what is the context of the question? Duty is the found. See, if it is related to duty and ethical public service, this should be your reference point. Duty is the foundation of ethical public service. This is the main idea around which you can frame a good conclusion. So, for writing conclusion, you must always complete your conclusion in 25 to 30 words. Okay. Integrity is the duty in action. What is integrity? Integrity is the duty in action. Okay. Third reference point. When this code, the second code needs to be used whenever there is question related to integrity. Okay. The third one. A civil servant's legitimacy comes not merely from authority but from faithful discharge of duty. Faithful discharge of duty. So, here the core idea is when there is a question on civil servant or public servant, and the question is related to authority of the civil servant, that he has a good authority and he has a lot of discretion. So, you must always conclude with the idea that his legitimacy or his respect is not a function of authority he is enjoying, but from the duty he is doing. Okay. Ethical governance is sustained. Ethical governance is sustained when public servant plays constitutional duty above personal interest or political expediency. Ethical governance is sustained. See, it is very important when it is related to governance related question. How? Ethical governance is sustained when public servant plays, whenever the official plays constitutional duty, that is the ideas of the constitution, above personal interest or political expediency. What is political expediency? See, at times it happens that you are given targets and those targets are needed to be completed in a shorter span of time, and at that time you have to see that whether the work is what is being done is benefiting the intended beneficiary or not. If the work is not benefiting the intended beneficiary, then there is no point of doing that work at all. So, whenever the political executive want that you need to complete your work in time or in haste, in hurry, then you must always balance that, always make sure that the work should be done so that it is benefiting the citizen, the needy people, the true beneficiary, rather than just completing the work on time. Okay. Now a mnemonic memory trick. See, I have just made it and I use it at times. That what is duty? From duty, you can easily learn about or keep a reference. First of all, duty is above consequences. Whenever you are thinking about duty, you should not think about the consequences. U is universal moral rules. Universal moral rules means, again, it is categorical imperative. Okay. T. Treat every person as an end, not merely as a means. And why? Your intention determines moral worth. Okay. So this was the concept related to deontology, and now we are moving to the PYQ. See, this question has been asked last year in paper 4 2025 for 10 marks. Okay. The question is, one who is devoted to one's duty, make the keyword duty, attains highest perfection in life. Okay. Analyze this statement in reference to the sense of responsibility and personal virtues expected from a civil servant. See, basically, this question is related to what are the virtues and how does a civil servant thinks about his own sense of responsibility. So the reference, see, in ethics and in most of the UPSC questions, it's always a practice that there is one reference statement. This is the reference statement. This reference statement establishes that what idea you need to use in the question. So the core idea is duty, and from duty, the core idea or the core ethical theory which is coming is deontology. Okay, this is the core idea, and this is the reference statement. What most of the people do, they start justifying the reference statement, and in 150 words, they spend around 40-50 words on that reference statement, which is not addressing the core demand at all and is of no use. Okay, it takes your time, it takes your space, and it doesn't serve any value. The core demand is analyze this statement in reference to sense of responsibility and personal virtues expected from a civil servant. Now let's come to intro. Intro. Immanuel Kant asserted that an action has moral worth only when performed from duty. So the last statement, the last quotes we were discussing, that action is moral only when it is performed for duty. So put that statement, it forms your conceptual base. Okay, this statement forms your conceptual base, that you know from where the question is coming. And now it is the contextual based. What is the context? So the context is public service. So in this context, it is written that in public service, devotion to duty transcends personal interest and outcomes. That is, devotion to duty is beyond personal interest and outcomes, fostering constitutional governance, public trust, and ethical excellence. This forms your intro. So, whenever you are writing an intro, the core idea is you must write intro according to whole of the question rather than the core concept. Okay? Then write a heading. A duty-oriented civil servant should demonstrate first commitment to constitutional values. Okay? The ideals of the constitution. See, here it is a subheading. Okay? Here it is the subheading commitment to constitutional values. Okay? Subheading. It is described by upholding justice, equality, and rule of law. Commitment to constitutional values by upholding justice, equality, and rule of law. If you remember and if you recall, we have just discussed all these things. And now we are just watching how these result or how these are translated into an answer. You have stated one ideal or one virtue. Now substantiate with an example. Example is Election Commission of India ensures free and fair election by impartially enforcing the Model Code of Conduct. Okay. Then comes integrity and honesty. The second part. Integrity and honesty in handling public resources and authority. Example, Ashok Khemka consistently upheld legal procedures despite repeated transfer. Despite Repeated transfer. I just told you why people are afraid or the IAS are afraid about transfers. Okay? Every civil servant wants to have a public dealing position. No one wants to have an office attached position. Okay? Accountability and transparency. See, these all are the things which we have already discussed. And those who are having trouble in writing answers related to deontology or answers related to ethics, this is how we translate the knowledge into answer. This is how we articulate answers. Accountability and transparency in decision making. Example, expansion of government e-marketplace has enhanced transparency and reduced discretion in public procurement. Compassion and empathy. Okay, compassion and empathy while implementing welfare measures. Example, officials during Wayanad landslide worked tirelessly to ensure rescue, relief, and rehabilitation. See, these all the points. I will put the slide or I will give you the PDF, but just read these and understand, try to understand that how these are articulated as per the demand of question. Okay, articulation is core concept or the keywords and then followed by an example to substantiate them. See, whenever you are not substantiating your answers, you are just doing an error of losing marks because if there are no examples or if there are no substantiation, it's just a hawa hawai kind of thing. Okay. Conclusion. Now let's come to conclusion. Devotion to duty transforms authority into public service. Authority into public service. See how beautiful this line is. Devotion to duty transforms authority into public service. Guided by integrity, compassion, constitutional values, a civil servant fulfills Kant's ideal that moral excellence lies in performing one's duty faithfully and selflessly. Okay? So, this has, if you see the conclusion, it has all the aspects which have been asked in the question. It has duty of, it has components of duty, public service, okay, selflessness, faithfulness. All those keywords are present in this conclusion, which are expected in the reference statement. Okay, so this is how you should conclude your answers in ethics or paper 4. Moving on to next question. Is conscience a more reliable guide when compared to laws, rules, and regulation in context of ethical decision making? This is the last question which we are discussing today. Okay. This is a PYQ of 2023 and the question is about, is conscience a more reliable guide when compared to laws, rules, and regulation in context of ethical decision making? Discuss. See, here you can either balance, you can take a stance, but whatever you do must be substantiated properly. Okay, because in this question nothing is unethical. Conscience is ethical, that can be justified with virtue ethics, as well as laws, rules, and regulation are already justified by duty ethics. So what we need to do, we need to harmonize both of them rather than taking a particular stance. Okay. So introduction. Immanuel Kant described conscience as moral law within, the internal moral law. Conscience is internal moral law. This is concept. Now come to context. In public service, ethical dilemmas often arise between inner conscience and laws, rules, and regulations. Dilemma is dharam sankat, or the condition where you are not able to take a clear stance. Okay. Ethical governance requires balancing both moral conviction with constitutional and legal obligations. Constitutional and legal obligations. This is your intro. in intro, what you need to do in 25 to 30 words, you just need to give an overall picture of the context or the issue. Okay, but try to have all the aspects which are asked in the question. Now come to body of the answer. So there are two parts. First is related to conscience, and the second is related to laws, rules, and regulation in context of ethical decision making. Okay. So first, let's discuss about conscience. So put a heading: conscience is a reliable guide because your conscience is a reliable guide. Even if you put only this as a heading, it is more than sufficient. What does conscience do? First, it promotes moral courage when laws are inadequate or poorly enforced. Conscience promotes moral courage when laws are inadequate or poorly enforced. For example, Satyendra Dubey exposed corruption despite several personal consequences. See, what is the story of Satyendra Dubey? Satyendra Dubey was an engineer in NHAI. Probably he went from Indian Engineering Services. And Satyendra Dubey, when he came to know about corruption in the national highway, he wrote a letter to Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, to the PMO. PMO made a mistake. PMO redirected that letter again to the Ministry of Road Transport and Highway, which eventually transferred that letter to NHAI. And when the superiors or the corrupt officers came to knew about such kind of letter, that Satyendra Dubey is writing letter for an inquiry, they just got him killed. So it is saying that conscience is a reliable moral guide and it promotes moral courage. So Satyendra Dubey has a moral courage despite knowing that he may get killed because the amount was huge. Okay. Secondly, it encourages compassion. Compassion, conscience. So it is beyond procedural compliances. What does conscience do? It enhances you or it encourages compassion beyond procedural compliance. Officials during Wayanad landslide prioritized rescue and rehabilitation with exceptional dedication. During the Wayanad landslide, the DM of Wayanad, he came himself and act as what was considered to be an act of laborer to be okay. That was done by him only. But now come to the second part of the answer. However, laws, rules, and regulations are indispensable. Laws, rules, and regulations are indispensable. First, it ensures impartiality and equality by preventing subjective decisions. When laws, rules, and regulations are enforced, there is a predictability regarding the outcome. Okay, so there is predictability as well as objectivity that if such thing is there, X would be the result. It is always known. For example, Election Commission of India uniformly enforces model code of conduct for all parties. If there is a model code of conduct, BJP, Congress, SAPA, whatever the party is, TMC, it is same for all the parties. Okay, that is the importance of rules and regulation. Secondly, it promotes accountability and transparency in public administration. Mandatory e-procurement under the GEM portal minimizes discretion and corruption. Now it is obligatory for the departments to use GEM portal for any kind of procurement. Okay, and when procurement is there, there is bidding, and usually the L1, that is the lowest one, is getting the tenders. Okay, protect constitutional morality over personal beliefs. Supreme Court of India has repeatedly upheld constitutional principles over individual convictions. See, what is constitutional morality? The ideals, or sorry, the morality driven by the ideals of the constitution is the constitutional morality. The ideals of the constitution are socialism, secularism, fraternity, liberty. These all are ideals given in the preamble. Preamble is the source of ethics for the nation. Okay, and from that it is derived. Thirdly, it ensures consistency and predictability in governance. You can read the examples. It prevents misuse of personal conscience arising from bias or prejudice. So the main idea is that you have to balance both conscience as well as laws, rules, and regulation. Just look up on what examples are given. I'll be putting the slide in the Telegram group, and I'll be giving my own Telegram ID in the comment section. You can ask me for the slides or the PDF. Okay. And lastly, to conclude, just look what is the text of the conclusion, because if you will not look into the conclusion, it would be very difficult for you to write good conclusions, because even when people are writing very good answers, they are lacking extremely in conclusions. Because I'm watching the copies of ethics of mains appearing students every day, and writing good intro and conclusion is a big challenge nowadays. People are writing just generic conclusion and they are losing 0.25 to 0.5 marks in their conclusions only. So just see upon the conclusion. Conclusion is consign give public service is ethical soul. See, in ethics you need to have a good language and a good articulation. Okay, because it is a subject of humanities, pure humanities and philosophy. So this subject requires very good articulation and very good command over the language. Having said that, it is equally important, or it is the prime objective, that everything should be within the domain of demand of the question. Okay? Conscience gives public service its ethical soul, while laws provide its constitutional discipline. Conscience gives ethical soul, law provides constitutional discipline. A civil servant should let conscience inspire decision, but ensure every action remains lawful, impartial, and accountable. Why it is written that lawful, impartial, and accountable? See, most of the time there is a conflict between accountability, or sorry, the conscience and law. Whenever conscience, law, rule and regulation or codes are in conflict, the first thing to be sacrificed is the accountability, the lawfulness, and the objectivity. So we have to conclude that we need to balance both conscience as well as laws, rules, and regulations, but not at the cost of objectivity, impartiality, impartiality and accountability. Okay. So this was the class for today. We will meet in the next class with virtue ethics. And after completing virtue ethics, care ethics, Buddhism, we will be discussing that how we can write good answers even without having knowledge of aptitude sections. Okay. So let's meet in the next lecture. Thank you for your time. If you like the lecture, please like and share, and subscribe the channel as well. Thank you.